Hello, my name is Peter Parford and welcome to New Brick Workshop. I've just bought the brand new Festool CSC Sys 50 and that's their battery powered portable table saw. It's behind me, more about that shortly. Now I have been using up until now the absolutely brilliant CMS TS, and that was their semi-portable arrangement using a TS55 saw in this bench arrangement. Now that's all very good and I've used it for years and years, mostly in the static workshop environment. It has served me really well. It's in excellent condition and it's never let me down. Now it's not made anymore, which is a great shame, and if you're after one you need to look very carefully on things like eBay to see if you can find one. But for moving it around I found it just very slightly awkward, and I really like the idea of this new battery powered machine, and that's why I'm going to tell you about it today. Now let me just tell you, I've paid for this. Festool have not sponsored me, nobody's given me any discounts, and I paid the full price. Anyway, let's have a look. Now it's really important whenever you get a new piece of Festool equipment is to go through the guarantee procedure, because it really does give you a lot of protection. So there it is unpacked, and we've got then, as I said before, the guarantee information, which is really important. Work on that as soon as you get the tool, and safety instructions and the manual. All important documents. Now it comes in this sort of sustainer format, and basically there's a large lid here which will lift off the saw. And there's a catch here at the front, like so. It's been undone, and there's another one identical at the back. And now I can then just lift the cover off the machine. Right, so the machine travels with its fence here, its side table folded down, and there's a sliding table here which is in a locked position. And inside the lid you can see a mitre fence. I think they call it a profile setting rail or something like that. But anyway, that's in a little position there. There's a catch here to release it, and it comes out like so. Now the only thing you've got to remember is when you want to put this all back in its little cosy little case, you've got to get this in the right position. There is on the top of this the letter P, which is its park position, and you probably won't be able to see it in this light, but there's a P there, and when you need to park this you get the two lined up like so, and then that's in the park position ready for it to be put away in the box. Anyway, back to where we were. Also in there is the blade guard at the top, comes out like so. Also in the lid is a little dust sack. If you don't have an extractor you can attach that to the dust port to catch the majority of the dust. And there's a place here where you can keep your various saw blades, and you can get saw blades for different purposes, ripping blades, general purpose blades and so on. Right, suppose we've just taken the machine out of the box and we want to set it up. This side fence is in the position right at the end there for travel, and of course you can move this to any position you like. Aha! But undo this little catch here and up pops the extension to the table, and that will slide out all the way to its full cutting width of 280 millimeters. And you lock it with this little lever here. Now there's a sliding table here, and there's a catch just here so you can unlock it so it can move to and fro. Now the way this works is with the mitre gauge, as I call it, and I've set that so that's on 0. There is a detent position for that. I'm going to slide it in here. Now in order to get it all the way in, there's a catch here which is a locking lever, and you get this set up on the bed there, and then you can lock it with this lever. And at this stage you need to move this fence part into its operating position, which is such that it doesn't hit the blade. Lock that off. So now we have this sliding table, and what I haven't looked up is what Festool claim to be the maximum length before you hit the saw blade. The saw blade is here. So you're talking in terms of probably about 400 millimeters, maybe a bit more if you back this off a bit. Maybe to something like there. It still works perfectly well. So you're now probably talking about well, approaching 500 millimeters. And as I said, I haven't looked up the instructions to see exactly what that is, but that's pretty reasonable. So you're able to cut some reasonably wide boards like that. If we turn this around, just here, you'll see the dust port. You can either connect the dust bag, which comes with the machine, or you can connect a hose, and that's a 27 millimeter dust port. So I put my hose in like so. And as the tilt angle is changed, so this will move, and you need to be aware of that should you be placing things anywhere near this end of the saw. We now need to take the machine through its initial setup, and this is from the moment that it's unpacked, and then we're going to get it going. Now I've put the mitre fence in here and locked it in place. There's a locking lever here, and I've freed up the carriage. Its locking lever is just here, so the carriage can move to and fro. I've got a pair of batteries, and I'm going to insert them now. And they go click when they're in place. Now on the same side of the machine as the two batteries, there's the master on-off switch, and I'm going to press that on. And you note that the green light comes on. And we now look at the display. The very first question it's asking is, what language do we want? At the moment it's auto selects to German, so I'm going to move this down to English, and I'm going to press select. The next thing it asks us to do is to start the reference drive, and we've got to press and hold this button. And what's happening above, and the saw is going through its own internal setup procedure for the angle of inclination. And remember, that is minus 10 degrees and plus 47 degrees. When that's done, release. Reference drive successful, and there's a tick there. So press once. It now says calibrate the cutting height. Press and hold. So I'm pressing and holding. The saw blade is now going down to its limit. And that says position workpiece. And I've got a piece of wood here. It's got a nice clean edge here. And I'm going to put it on the bed. And what it wants you to do now is to run the machine until it just touches the underside of this. And it's up to you to detect when that happens. So it says position workpiece. I've done that. It then says start the saw blade. So you press the green button. The saw blade starts, and it says align with the dial. What you saw me do was to increment it by 0.1 of a millimetre at a time, and then feel to see if I've got any scratch marks. I've now actually got a scratch mark, and I've said that's okay. So I'm now going to do my test with this piece of wood, and I'm going to do it at 12 millimetres. So that's saw blade is at 12 millimetres. I'm going to start my extractor. Start the saw. So I'll now check this cut. That is 11.96. That's 11.98, so 11.96 to 11.98. I'm pretty pleased with that. Excellent. Now I've gone to the calibrate position, and the first thing is it says position a 90-degree tri-square as shown, which I've done. It says align saw blade with dial. Well, I must tell you that is spot on, so I've done that. Absolutely spot on. Now in order to fit the main blade guard, one has to first of all remove the little riving knife which is here, which is the one used for trenching cuts, and then we're going to fit this one. Now there are two ways of going about this, and in both cases you need to have the machine with the blade set in the park position. So I'm going to the menu here. At the very bottom there's a P. The little green selector is at the P. I'm then going to press that, and that blade is now in the parked position. I kept that pressed until the blade finished moving. Now at this stage I would always switch the machine off at the main on-off switch, and in fact if I were doing a blade change I would remove the batteries as well to be absolutely safe. But there we go, that's me being extra cautious perhaps. And in the instructions it says that in order to remove the ordinary riving knife, you can push this in, push, and then lift it up. And that's a small riving knife removed. Now, at this stage, I'll just say, to fit it back in, when you look down in there, you can see exactly where it should go. And you push down until it goes click. That's it, it's clicked, and it's firmly in place. And you have to check that. So anyway, I'm now going to show you the second way of doing that process. Again, I've got this machine switched off with this button here. I'm just going to move the bed all the way out here. Now there's a black cover plate here, and you may not be able to see it with the camera, but there's a locked position, an unlocked position, and there's a place for a hex key. So I'm going to move that to the unlocked position, and this cover comes off. And there's a little lever here, it's a shiny lever. Press that, and that then allows that to release. Now, whilst we've got this cover off, I can now fit this by looking carefully down, making sure it's in the right place. And I push it down until it goes click. And I check to make sure it's fully home. You don't have to have this cover off to do that. You can do that from above with the cover in place. Replace the cover and turn this back to the lock position. Important that you do that. So, removing the riving knives, you either push hex key in from the back and release it, or open this cover here and press the little lever and then release it. That's now the blade cover in place, and of course you can see I've got to adjust my mitre fence so that it clears. So it clears that. Now, in order to do a blade change, one needs to first of all move the blade into the saw blade change position. So I'm going to double click on here, and one of the options here is saw blade change. I'm going to press that, and it says move to the position and press and hold. So move the blade to the change position by pressing and holding. So the position has been reached. And it now says switch off the saw to change the blade. Well, it says clearly in the instructions, not only do you switch off the saw, but you also remove the battery packs. Both of them. So there now is absolutely no way that this saw could start. Next we need to remove the cover plate here. We've done that once already. And we've now exposed the centre of the blade where we can see the blade retaining bolt. And you should be able to see just here there is a spindle lock control which you push down, and you can rotate this, and eventually that has now locked because that has clicked into place. Now you can remove the blade. It's a left-hand thread, so in other words, to loosen it you're going to go that way, clockwise. It's quite tight. Now it does recommend you wear gloves to do this. There we go, that's loosened. And you would then, in the normal way of any blade change, loosen it completely, remove the blade and put the new one in. Well, I'm going to tighten this back up again because I don't need to actually do it. It does recommend that before you do a blade change, you vacuum out this area to clean it up. Now, clearly I've not actually used this saw other than the demonstration you've seen already. So there's no dust or debris in there. But anyway, that's the process. We can now refit this cover, making sure it's properly locked. Now I've fitted the blade cover, even though it's not in the upright position. The idea of the upright position is that when you then insert this key in the end here to try and release it, then the release catch is in the right place. But anyway, that's now fitted. I can now refit my batteries. And finally, I think I need to do a quick check to make sure I can do a nice square cut on here. Now this is the edge I was cutting against, and I have to tell you that's that's pretty good. Yeah, I can't really fault it, to be honest. That's absolutely super duper, and I hope you can see that there. And the final little check I'll do is put this fence in a position. I've got it spot on the 50 millimeter position, and I'm going to then just take a piece off this little bit of board here. And there is a little push stick provided. And I hope you can see that that is pretty jolly accurate. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And one could adjust that if necessary, because these scales can be adjusted. Now, I admit there are a couple of things I haven't gone into a lot of detail on because of the length of time it takes, but you can set up favourite cutting positions, you know, with the particular angles and particular depths, things like that. Particularly useful if you're working on site and you're doing a lot of fiddly work and you don't want to keep having to adjust things. Just press the button, choose the favourite, and it locks the saw into that position. Remember that if you're doing anything on this saw to remove the batteries, you know, not only switch it off, but remove the batteries as well, to be on the safe side. Just as you would remove the mains plug from the wall socket if you're changing a blade on a mains powered saw. Now, I'll be using this machine on site over the coming couple of weeks, and I'm really pleased. I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited about it. Now, bearing in mind I've not been paid to do this, I've bought this machine myself. I paid the full market price, so I can now tell you it's fantastic. It's really, really good. Now, a long time ago, I was suggesting to various people, you know, well-known companies in the woodworking business, that someone ought to produce a really accurate, small, compact table saw. And finally, someone has done it. And I think this is an absolutely superb bit of kit. I love it. Many thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.